You know that feeling when you feel pulled in two completely different directions at once? It's like one part of you is screaming for growth and change, while the other part is digging its heels in, just wanting to stay safe and comfortable. It's a feeling we all know. So today, we're going to dive into how you can actually harness that internal tug of war and turn it into real, powerful, intelligent momentum in your life. And this quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? This isn't about some big external force pushing you around. Nope. It's all about those quiet, constant negotiations happening inside your own head. The ones that, believe it or not, end up steering the entire ship of your life. All right, so let's actually break this inner conflict down. We're going to start by really identifying the two main voices that are pretty much always competing for the driver's seat inside every single one of us. And this slide frames that battle perfectly. On one side, you've got expansion. That's the part of you that craves growth, that wants clarity, that's hungry for new challenges. But then, on the other side, you've got comfort. And that's the voice that's all about safety, sticking with what's familiar, and avoiding anything that feels too hard. This negotiation is happening inside you all the time, whether you're paying attention to it or not. So if you ever want to resolve this conflict, you first have to get crystal clear on where you're even trying to go. That's why this first step is so crucial. I want you to take a second and really think about this question. I mean, really think. No vague answers, no general stuff. What is it that you truly, honestly want? Maybe it's one of the things you see right here. It could be that solid ground of stability, or maybe the excitement of personal growth. It might be something tangible, like more income, or it could be something much more internal, like just finding some peace from all the overthinking. Whatever it is, the key is to name it. You have to give that desire a clear voice. Okay, so once you know what you want, the next logical move is to understand what's really on the line if you don't go for it. So let's take a look at the invisible price, and it is a price that we all pay for staying stuck in doubt. This question right here, it gets to the first layer of the cost. When you know your goal, but you just hesitate, what are you actually giving up in that moment? As we're about to see, it's almost always way more than you think. And this slide really lays out the real losses, doesn't it? Time, well, that's the obvious one. Momentum is that precious energy that just makes every next step feel a little bit easier. But I want you to look at self-trust. That one is huge. Every single time you don't act on what you want, you're chipping away at your belief in yourself. And you miss out on compounding growth. That amazing effect where tiny, consistent actions build into something massive over time. Now, let's dig into something a bit more subtle. This is a fascinating question because we're all taught that giving people the benefit of the doubt is a good thing, right? A virtue. And sure, it can be, but when does it cross the line and actually become a form of self-sabotage? You can see the cost right here. When you keep giving the benefit of the doubt to obvious red flags, whether that's in a job, a relationship, or even with your own bad habits, you pay a really heavy price. Your clarity gets all foggy, your personal boundaries start to crumble, and you waste an incredible amount of emotional energy just trying to explain away what your gut already knows is true. And it all boils down to this simple truth you see on the screen. Giving the benefit of the doubt over and over again can just be a really clever way to put off a tough but necessary decision. It's a delay tactic, pure and simple. And by delaying your acknowledgement of what's real, you're actively choosing to delay your own progress. So this brings us to a really interesting paradox. I mean, after talking so much about the cost of doing nothing, you might think the answer is just to, hurry up. But it's not quite that simple. The real secret here is learning to master your pace. On the surface, these two ideas, slowing down and taking action, they seem like they're in a fight with each other. But as we're going to see, real, lasting progress requires you to be a master of both. So let's break down what you actually get from each one. First, let's talk about slowing down. And let's be super clear. This does not mean stopping. It means observing before you react. It's all about creating that tiny, crucial bit of space between a trigger and your response. And in that space, that's where you find clarity, that's where you get your emotions in check, and that's where you can think strategically instead of just impulsively. In short, you gain discernment. And then, on the flip side, you have the undeniable, incredible power of action. Acting is what turns a wishy-washy idea into a solid part of who you are. It's the tangible proof you give yourself that yes, you are the kind of person who follows through. This builds momentum, and so critically, it builds self-respect. You gotta remember this. You can't think your way into a new identity. You have to act your way into it. So what actually happens when there's a gap between what you say and what you do? When what you say you want and what you're actually doing every day are two completely different things. Well, that's the source of our deepest, most draining internal friction. There's actually a psychological term for this friction. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's that uncomfortable, kind of jarring feeling you get when your day-to-day behavior just doesn't line up with what you claim to value. And our brains are literally hardwired to hate this feeling of being out of sync. And I bet these examples on this slide here feel pretty familiar to a lot of us. You say you want to grow, but you stay in an environment that keeps you small. You say you want peace, but you keep letting people who create drama and friction into your life. That misalignment, that is the very definition of internal dissonance. And here is the absolute crucial insight. As the slide says, the mind hates this feeling, and it's going to try to fix it in one of two ways. Now, the harder but more rewarding path is to change your behavior to match your goals. But the much easier and frankly far more common path is to just change the story. You rationalize. You start telling yourself, oh, it's not so bad. Or maybe I'm just making a big deal out of nothing. So how do we resolve this conflict in a way that actually moves us forward without just changing the story to make ourselves feel better? Well, this brings us to the ultimate resolution, the big idea of this whole explainer, how to achieve intelligent momentum. This framework right here is the how-to for everything we've just talked about. It's a simple 3-step process. First, doubt once. Go ahead, give the benefit of the doubt as an act of grace, but not over and over again as a form of avoidance. Second, slow down to think. Use slowness to get clear and strategic, not to stall and procrastinate. And third, act decisively. Once you have that clarity, you move with conviction, not with reckless impulse. And this is the ultimate goal. Just like the slide says, when that strategic slowness and that decisive action can coexist, you create intelligent momentum. It's not about being fast or being slow, it's about being effective. It's that beautiful harmony between your thoughtful, strategic self and your decisive, action-taking self. And ultimately, it all comes down to the choice you see right here on this slide. You can keep losing precious energy by tolerating that constant feeling of misalignment. Or you can choose to gain immense personal power by moving forward with intention and with awareness. The choice, as always, is yours. And that brings us to the final and I think the most important question of this entire explainer. Look, this isn't about trying to overhaul your entire life by tomorrow morning. It's about one small, intentional choice. Based on everything we've just explored, what is one single thing you will choose to do differently, just for today?